Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the final panel of the day. And thank you to those who are sticking around to the bitter end. The panel today is titled "Making STEM for Everyone," and my name is Herb Baker. Just a quick bit about myself. I worked for NASA for 42 years, retired in 2017. Spent most of my career in the Space Shuttle, Space Station, and Orion programs, and now I spend almost all of my time supporting, volunteering for nonprofit organizations that support STEM, promote STEM education and involvement. For example, the NASA Alumni League. That's what I spend most of my time doing. I guess I'm on the board of directors of the JSC NASA Alumni League, and also support the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation and Space Center Houston and a few other smaller organizations that support STEM engagement and education. And so now that's enough about me. I will introduce our three panelists. Oh, and so if you're looking at the program and you notice that there are only me and three others, Dorothy Rasco needed to leave a little earlier than planned, so she won't be with us this afternoon, but I think we'll be fine. So on the opposite side for me there is Frank Hughes. Frank spent more than 33 years with NASA, many of those years developing and implementing training and planning procedures. He was a computer and guidance and navigation control expert during Apollo. He trained shuttle crews in guidance control and computer systems. He left shuttle training to initiate space station training in 1982. He retired from NASA and continued developing new training efforts in the aerospace community, including as president of Titronic Software. Frank received a Bachelor of Science degree in physics from St. Mary's College of California and also received a Master's of Science degree in environmental management from the University of Houston. He's an aerospace educator and organizational developer, adult learning expert, lecturer, and STEM education activist. Next to Frank is John Saiz. John was a member of the NASA team of engineers until 2014, so he actually retired before I did, where, among other assignments, he was the NASA JSC Chief Technology Officer. He's currently an industrial fellow with the Institute for Manufacturing, IFM, at the University of Cambridge in England. John and the team at the IFM work with manufacturing and technology-intensive organizations worldwide to refine their innovation and technology management capabilities. He's led collaboration with a number of organizations, including AstraZeneca, General Electric, Halliburton, Pfizer, Purdue, UCLA, and several others. John has a Bachelor of Science degree in Petroleum Engineering from the New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology and a Master of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Houston. John's married to Natalie Saiz, who spoke on a previous panel, and they currently reside in New Mexico. And next to me here is Carolyn Conley. Carolyn joined NASA in 1975, same year as me, and was the first female flight activity officer on STS-3. She planned shuttle timelines, worked on the space station Freedom design, then worked on the Shuttle Mir program. She now integrates life sciences experiments into the ISS and collaborates with principal investigators. Carolyn has a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry and a Master's of Science in Geochemistry from UCLA and a Master's in Physics from U of H Clear Lake. Her dream is to use her space engineering experience to research patterns in space radiation for life on Earth and in the oceans and for future space travel. So planning to operate this panel kind of like the others, I will ask the question and then invite any or all three of the panelists to comment. So my first question is, why did you choose to work in the space program, or did it choose you? Who would like to go first?
You're in charge.
Oh, the story of how it chose me is way too long for this.
All right, well, I'll start out. I joined NASA in 1966 with a degree in physics, but the school I went to actually, Lyndon Johnson came in April of 1963 and gave a talk at the school because the school was 100 years old. Somebody had some pull, so Lyndon Johnson flew into town and recruited me. I mean, after he talked about Apollo, literally right then, I was going to be an astronomer, optical astronomer, and I just kind of flew away. And I said, no, I'm going to go do this. And then there's a longer story, but that was the deal. So I always told him, Johnson was the one who recruited me. Actually, I went to graduate school, but I got lured out of there directly. NASA came there and recruited me out of that degree. And I came down here 3 weeks before I was to come to Houston to get my job. A phone call came and they said, no, we have an opening in Florida. We need you to really go down there and work on the Apollo training down there. And I did. So the first 5 years I was in Florida working on all the training, and I was out there the first day the first piece of simulator for Apollo arrived. They were already doing Gemini. Mercury was done. Gemini was going on. So I got there just before Gemini 9, and so I played in the simulators through that time. And then I trained all of the people who went to the moon, or everything since. I had my fingerprints on most of the shuttle stuff early, just because I was by then management and going through.
Ladies first. It's appropriate that I go after Frank because, as with Michelle, he was one of the men at NASA that did encourage me in my first years there. I chose aerospace. I was raised in a generation when women could be secretaries or nurses or teachers or mothers. And I thought I'd be a teacher. I did go to UCLA thinking I'd be a history teacher, but I had dyslexia, which of course was undiagnosed then. So I was failing out of UCLA my freshman year. The only way I could get A's was to go back to the sciences, which I did for the next 3.5 years. And I chose chemistry because it was the most supportive department of all the sciences at the south end of the UCLA campus. And then I did flounder somewhat. It was the student riots in Kent State and what have you. I then decided I was, by the way, I was blessed by the universe. I was number 3 out of about 1,000 Chemistry 1 students in lab technique. And my professor called me in and said, you do very well, you're number 3, would you like a job? And of course I said yes. I was working my way through college, so this was quite a help. But I also decided by my 3rd and 4th year that I didn't want to be a chemist the rest of my life. And so at any rate, I took extra classes in education. I ended up getting my K through 9 life teaching credential in California. I got trained in Montessori, and I was absolutely broke as a school teacher. So then I really looked and searched my heart, and I needed a purpose. So I studied a lot, and we'd gone to the moon. I knew about that. My folks had worked at Santa Susana for Rocketdyne. I knew about rockets and all. And I set as a lifetime commitment to help the peaceful evolution of humanity off the Earth, which has been my guiding star through every single up and down moment I have ever had in my career. Because as Michelle pointed out, curveballs will come your way. And you have to decide if you stay or if you go, if you change direction or if you find a variation on that path. So that's been my guiding light for all the decades of my career. And the point here is that once I made that commitment, I went back to UCLA. A woman professor got me in. I went in after Christmas, before New Year's. I said, I want to go. I want to work at NASA. She got me in the second week of the UCLA quarter system, and I graduated with my master's in 12 months. I, in the basement, read the posters to be an intern at the Johnson Space Center and went around and interviewed people until Mr. Krantz of Apollo 13 told me 3 different flight control positions that I might be qualified for. And I'd done a lot of church organizing. Now this is another thing, just real quickly, but a lot of your volunteer work you can capitalize into real employment. So I chose flight activity officer because I was used to organizing conferences and bus trips and church activities. I'm a piece of cake. I can do that for astronauts, can't I? So thank you.
Yes, I'm suddenly feeling a little out of place. I grew up on a farm in New Mexico. You know, we had alfalfa. And,
Eat the mic, eat the mic.
we had a tractor and we had a few head of cattle and some sheep and chickens and so on. And you know, the space program is probably the furthest thing from my mind at that time when I was growing up. And my brother went to college. He was the first in my family to go to college, and he went to New Mexico Tech, and he's now a doctor now. And so, you know, he was kind of an inspiration to me. New Mexico Tech is like Texas Tech is kind of a science school. And New Mexico Tech's an earth science school, and so I had an aptitude for science and math. I really liked it. And so I thought, hey, petroleum engineering, I'll do that. You know, that's you can be outside, and I like to be outside and so on. So I studied that and got a degree in petroleum engineering and ended up in Houston, working out in the oil fields. You know, working out in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Permian Basin, in the middle of barges and swamps of Louisiana and so on. I did that for a few years, and then the whole oil business crashed. This was in the mid 80s, and so. Back then, nowadays, Houston's very diversified. There's all kinds of things you can do, with, any kind of background, you can do it in Houston. But back then, there was no place to run. Everything was oil and gas, and the only other thing was the space program. And I thought, well, that's really only for smart people. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I can, my parents taught me the importance of working hard. Growing up and so on, I thought, well, maybe I can just work hard, go back to school. I got approved to go to the University of Houston. I got a master's degree, and I worked on a project that involved funding from NASA. And one of the NASA people said, hey, why don't you just apply to NASA? And I applied, and I got hired. So, I guess that's just. The program kind of found me, but I guess that's one of my messages for today is just work hard and just be open to the possibilities because you never know.
Well, talking about feeling out of place, it wasn't clear from my bio probably, but I was a business major in college, and so I was not in a STEM, field. Obviously, I got to work with doctors and engineers and scientists and astronauts every day for 42 years and just fascinated by it. And so I think that's probably led me to realizing after I retired that, I need to do whatever I can to help. What I especially love doing is encouraging kids. I mean, even I've done multiple presentations to third graders, several. Younger than that doesn't work too well. I tried that once. I'm not going to go below third grade again, but I've done multiple presentations to third graders, and they just, their eyes are big, and they just love it. And of course, the whole outreach thing, all it takes is one kid in that group to someday, be an astronaut or work for NASA or be involved in space exploration, and it was all worth it. So the next question is, how did you become involved in STEM advocacy? But before I let you answer, I want to tell you about something I learned about STEM as I was preparing for this panel. So obviously, engineering, science, math has been around for a long, long time, but STEM wasn't a thing until about 1999 or 2000 or so. And the interesting story is that it started out as SMET, S-M-E-T, and it was a woman who worked for the National Science Foundation in about 2000, 2001 and said, that sounds an awful lot like smut. Maybe we should just rearrange the letters. And so that's how we came up with STEM. Anyway, okay, now, so how did you become involved in STEM advocacy? All three of you.
Let's start down here again. Well, first of all, I did not get to NASA to be a flight controller. I was an instructor. That is how I came in the door. Like Michelle said, we didn't get to learn how to teach. And in fact, once I was in management, that's one of the things I added, that you had to qualify it as a teacher. Anybody went through there. And all the notes, when you go through college, you knew how you survived bad teachers, in any college. I would have done that if I was the provost of any university. I would have said, everybody has to go through and learn how to teach before you can teach at this university. It's just such a simple thing. But anyway, you could not train our people, train our astronauts, unless you had done whatever. And that meant you had to learn how the systems, all the things that Michelle was talking about. And by the way, Debbie was one of those people. There were 3 or 4 others who were some of my earlier instructors, and that was a delightful old times thing to everybody together today. But you had to learn the spacecraft, then you learn how to teach, and then you had to learn to run the simulator. Okay, that's a whole different thing, because the simulator, it's one thing you can think about. You build something that makes it look like the shuttle is running. Problem is, then you have to put in not just how it works, but how, when it doesn't work, you have to program what a system will look like when it fails. And and then you also have to understand what it's going to do when it fails, and so on. So that whole thing led almost all of my instructors. I convinced most of them to go to schools, go out and preach the gospel, of NASA out there. And so we did. We had a lot of people who were heading out a lot. And just, anybody go day off, so they're going to teach somewhere, go to school and do things like that. But STEM, we were doing it in the early 80s. We were doing it just all the time because, first of all, anybody that came in, if their family came, I'd almost say that you got little brothers and sisters, siblings, and we'd talk to them. It's the same thing. You were just trying to convince more people to come here, be good at what we do, and we want to maintain all these people. So the astronauts, people gave them to us. The rest of them, we were trying to take that message out too. We were just trying to make the best astronauts, bring them home alive, and so on. That was the mantra. Okay, and so on.
Okay. So, early on I kind of developed an aptitude for working with people and finding ideas. Some of them were my own ideas, some of them were other ideas, and just building on those ideas and actually making them happen. And I learned that by just jumping around a little bit. I spent most of my career in engineering, and I started out in the thermal systems division, crew and thermal systems division, then structural engineering. I worked in robotics, biomedical systems, and so on. And I think the best ideas were found by, cross-pollinating people's ideas with other ideas. And one of the things I worked on when I was appointed the chief technologist was these roadmaps. How do you actually send people to other planets? How do you enable human beings to live without the Earth? So we built roadmaps to kind of think about those things. And one of the things I realized is that a lot of the people that work at NASA, they're really, really smart people, and they've been working there a long time. But some of these efforts, in particular, working to put people on Mars, this is just my own view, okay? But it's going to be bigger than NASA, okay? It's going to be bigger probably than the U.S. It's going to be a worldwide undertaking that involves a lot of organizations working together. And that's why STEM is important to me, because I think the answers are going to come from probably people in your generation. I mean, people in my generation have thought a lot about how to go around and around the Earth. But when you want to go to other places, it's going to require additional perspectives, fresh perspectives, new ideas. And I think it's people that are currently in your age. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you come up with. And I just hope I'm alive long enough to see people on Mars, people on another planet. But I think it's people in your age that are going to do it.
I became an advocate for STEM because I've benefited so much from STEM. I have science degrees and I have engineering on-the-job training by the courtesy of NASA Johnson Space Center. I was not raised to be anything but a little girl. Children weren't encouraged when I grew up. I was very blessed to be in the Los Angeles public school system. When I came here to Texas, remembering I'm a Westerner from California, I was called a Yankee. Here I am in the South, and I'm not quite used to the South, but one of the engineers within my first year said, well, you know, I always wanted to meet somebody that was a product of the LA public school system. Well, we moved when I was in 7th grade to a newer school, and I was in 5.5 years of science, mathematics, and technical classes in the LA public school system. I was not allowed to take drafting. That was only for the boys. But all the science and math classes were open to the girls. And then at UCLA, not knowing I was dyslexic, but my grades were telling me couldn't read, I had to go back to the sciences, but that saved me. That saved my career in college, and it gave me the credential. The last year when I decided I didn't want to be a chemist, I did decide I'd finish my chemistry degree. I didn't know where it was going to lead, but I knew you had to have a college degree, and I was going to get the hardest one I could get. So when I advocate for STEM, I do encourage children to study the hardest thing you're capable of. Even if you're maybe a B student, B is okay. It's good. If it's a technical area, I've been recently encouraging college students to take the GIS, Geography.
Geographical Information System.
Yes, Geographical Information System. But it's a way of plotting anything on the Earth in multiple directions and then layering. It's used in 30 to 40 industries. Its average salary is $67,000 a year, which is not bad for just starting out. So I've benefited, and I encourage young people and the parents to open up opportunities also to give STEM kind of Christmas gifts or subscriptions to magazines or subscriptions to a monthly I say toy, but something that they have to build. So yes, I'm an advocate. I also every year go to the SEEK conference at Space Center Houston. I started going there with Expedition 1. I was encouraging teachers to use the communication system of the amateur radio with Commander Shepard. So I've been advocating there, and I've created a network of teachers, and there I learned the challenges teachers have with connecting with NASA and teaching STEM. Thanks a lot.
I'll see you at SEEK in a couple of weeks, or next week, February 5th through 8th or something like that. Yeah. Yes, Space Educators or Space Exploration Educators Conference at the Space Center Houston. Yeah, I've been there myself about 3 or 4 years as I can't remember what they called it, an alternate educator. I'm obviously not a teacher, but I go to a lot of schools and at the request of teachers to talk to their students about it. And so looking at the next question, since leaving NASA, why do you feel it's important to continue promoting STEM education? That's really very close to the last question I asked, and so some of you kind of already answered that in part. I just want to add that, as I mentioned, I was got a business degree, and so I'm as much as I loved all 42 years working in the business offices, supporting all of the STEM offices at NASA, I understand that none of the amazing, wonderful things that NASA has accomplished over the years would have been possible without those STEM fields. So I think that's why I'm personally passionate about it. So again, is there anything else that you might want to add regarding why you feel it's important to continue promoting STEM even after we've retired?
Yeah, I'll take a shot at that one. I really like the newer acronym, STEAM, STEAM. Yeah, science and math are pretty important. That's important to me. That's why I ended up doing what I'm doing. But I don't want to forget, I don't think we should forget about the importance of the arts. You know, STEAM, you know, creative design, you know, music, you know, things like that. I mean, it's important to be creative, and a lot of your creativity comes from the arts. And so, you know, I'd like to also think that the A also stands for athletics. Maybe that's just me, but you know, in this day and age where there's a lot of emphasis on the individual, I think athletics is one of those few things where you emphasize collaboration and the importance of teams working together to, you know, move the ball forward and achieve your goals. You know, and so I just encourage, especially the younger folks in the room, just to kind of always be creative and just broaden your mind. Think about math and science and those things, but also just look for opportunities to grow. And you know, sports is an opportunity to grow, and music, and you know, art, you know, all of those things. Just always think about how you can you know, learn and move forward.
Did you have something?
Well, I do. A couple of things. If you think about it, actually, if you know anybody who is a real scientist, almost always they play music or they do some kind of art. It's part of that brain where it all functions. And so that's, I love it that we have the art contest here, just as much as I like the robotics contest. In other words, you're existing in that part of the brain where the creativity is happening, and we can do something with it. I think that's really, really critical. Also, just dealing with people. There's a lot of scientists, let's say flight controllers, who are kind of closed. They don't want to necessarily meet everybody else. They're more quiet. They might go drinking beer with them, whatever, but they don't get close. I had some interesting thing. I had the honor of working with a movie that we did a few years ago called First Man. It's about Neil Armstrong and first flight. And going along, I was real proud of what we got done. It isn't the best thing. I thought it was too dark because Neil was much more sunny than he was portrayed, but it's okay. And I had a couple people with flight controllers, and they said, well, I didn't like it. I said, why? He said, I didn't want to know too much about that family. In other words, you know, they didn't want to hear, they knew the landing side, but they didn't want to know what the home life was like. And okay, you know, we can't do, but I want the art. I want the parts where it's out there. It's not just the technology and it's not the science. It's also the other side of your brain, so you're become a real rounded person. Okay. And so that's what we said. In fact, that's why, again, I was trying to convey all of the people who are working for me. I found Greg Byrne over here, so he just snuck in with somehow. Another instructor used to work for me. And when I moved on to that organization, we were 50-50. We had 50% women. So I was real proud of that. Go ahead.
I would like to add a broader concept of why STEM is important. It's actually important for the entire society. And we've been talking on an individual and a family level, but we can't be really good voting citizens without a better understanding of technology, computer algorithms, the way money's moved around the world, who other countries that perhaps would not allow as many rights as we have in this country, they graduate 5 and 10 times as many engineers as we do. This is important for the survival of our democracy as it evolves. We have an evolving democracy, evolving capitalism, an evolving culture. But because we have a strong constitution, generally a well-educated population, people that are willing to serve in the military, we can explore and have time to develop as individuals, but we can also make sure that to make good decisions, even for you as individuals, whatever age range you are, Are you watching PBS Science Night Wednesday in Houston? Are you keeping up with the change in genetics and genomics? And you're going to be given questions eventually on your loved ones. Are we doing a stem transplant? Can we have some of their cells to clone them? There are things in our future we do not even appreciate right now. But this is the time for all of us to stay current on STEM and STEAM.
Thanks. Okay, well, at this time, we would be happy to take any questions from the audience, if anyone has one. Yes.
May we comment? You have Civil Air Patrol here with you today, and that's a national element of the Air Force, Civil Air Patrol. And the Civil Air Patrol, GoCivilAirPatrol.com, promotes STEM in the school districts. And they provide the materials. So now you can do drones, you can do rocketry, you can do, as you did today, the contest there on robotics. I think we got ready to add a new one with your A. What the A is, as well as arts, artificial intelligence.
Another good one. Wow. Yeah, I personally happen to agree with the STEAM concept. Of course, we all know, I think we all know, Nicole Stott painted the first watercolor on the space station, and several astronauts have played musical instruments on the space station. And I can't help but wonder if the fact that they were an artist or musician helped them be selected as an astronaut in the first place. So, yeah. Yes?
I was wondering, what was your biggest obstacle in pursuing a STEM degree, and how did you overcome that obstacle?
Actually, I guess I grew up in Montana, and I was the first college graduate in my family. My pioneers are either horse thieves out of Canada or immigrants from Ireland, things like that. So there was nobody standing in my way. Money is the only thing in the way. And I chose to go to a Catholic college and had to, rent my soul with the whole thing to get to go there. But once I was there, then I got other grants and scholarships and so on. But once I was into the thing, I was probably a B+ student. I was not the A guys, okay. But I could do anything in the hardware. That is, I became a lab instructor and going through physics, and so I was able to get everything in the lab, make it work. So they hired me for that, for $1.25 an hour. I put myself through school. But after that, that's why I'm kind of in the interest of getting everybody else to do that. Get out there and speak STEM, not just talk. Capital letters, not the little ones.
Oh shoot, it seems like my entire life I've been catching up to other people. I mean, when I got into college, my freshman year, I got really poor grades, and I had to my butt off to do better. And by the time I finished, it was nice. I felt pretty good making the honor roll, and going into the oil business, it was again a challenge because you're working in different environments and you're always learning new things. Joining the space program, you're surrounded by super smart people. Perhaps we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I ended up on the other side of the world working with some people from the University of Cambridge, and they said, "Hey, come work for us." I was like, "Wait a minute, those are super smart British people." So every step, I've always tried to just work hard and just continue to look for opportunities to grow, and so that's just kind of how I did it. Just keep working.
I would say that this is one of the best countries probably in the world for pursuing STEM education and education in general. As I mentioned earlier, I was very fortunate to be born into California in the LA public school system. But California also has one of the greatest University of California systems in the United States. And I sometimes marvel within the LA basin how many universities I could go to And especially when I came here originally to Houston, how few universities we had in the greater Houston area compared to the fact that it was the fourth largest city in the nation. That has been improving. And I also, over the days, we've learned that several people in this audience, we were late bloomers in a way. Several people got their masters and PhDs and MBAs during their working career. And several of us were in careers, education or petroleum, and we went back to get a degree to kickstart us in aerospace. So in this country, we're very blessed with the opportunity to keep linking up with our STEM education roots. And I have been curveballs. Some universities have turned me down, but there have been other doors open, and we don't also generally we don't discriminate by cultural reasons or by age. So you never age out of STEM. I can here to tell you that.
Okay, any other questions?
Over here.
Oh, okay, yes, go ahead.
This is directed at each speaker on the panel. Okay, so as your earliest education, even going back to junior high, what is one fact that you were taught that has been disproven, or a theory that you were taught that came to pass?
That has been disproven?
Like a fact that was taught earlier that now has been disproven,
Oh.
or a theory that was taught that has come to pass?
I'll take the first one. I'll do that one. A lot of people told me when I was growing up that the moon landing was totally fake. And I talked with a lot of people when I got to the Johnson Space Center. I talked with a lot of people who actually worked the moon landing, and they were very clear that it was real. And I just thought, wait a minute, there was several thousands, many thousands of people who were in on working and to make that happen. So they were all either in on it or they were all completely duped. So I thought, no, that's not likely. So that one.
Okay.
Carolyn? You got one? Go ahead.
Well, I'll do two. One is generally, when I was going to school, they were arguing about the continental drift theory. And I was in high school and I put Africa next to South America. I thought, it's obvious. It fits. I'm a kid. And I subscribed to a magazine that doesn't exist anymore called Oceans Magazine. And I thought I read this and I go, oh, I want to be an oceanographer. Jacques Cousteau, be an oceanographer. So that was eventually confirmed that we have. As a matter of fact, they've gone back and figured out, now we even know the moon split off. Somehow the two merged and separated, and now we've figured out the whole Gondwana or whatever it was and the phases of the separation. So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think my favorite that we did when I joined NASA, and of course I thought I was going to be an astronomer, wound up changing career. That's a hobby now, but but it was water. I mean, everything I learned about the planets and everything about that, even through NASA, was we're going to have to figure out a way to carry all that water to go anywhere, And now it seems like it's just everywhere. I mean, I don't know where the hell was our spectroscopes that didn't tell us that. But the fact is now we could probably import it from there if we want to. Anyway, so water was the biggest one that's a tenant that you just had to find. This was the water planet. Remember, people would say this is the water planet, and all the aliens are going to come and steal our water. They're probably coming here to get away from it. Okay.
I have one too. It's not so much a fact or a theory that was disproven, but something that people told me. So when I was a senior in high school, I needed to find an elective to complete my coursework. And my mother was good friends with the typing teacher, so I thought, oh, well, I'll take typing. And a lot of people told me, what the heck are you taking typing for? You're never going to use that. Well, little did I know, spend the next, 40 years of my life on a computer. Yeah. Any other questions?
I got one.
Oh,
I have a question for the folks in the audience. And So, you know, I spent a lot of time thinking about technology in my later years, and I talked a little bit about the roadmaps and you know, the idea of going farther and farther away from the Earth, it brings a whole new set of challenges. And, you know, the challenges come from just the longer durations involved. You know, if you're going to the space station, you can get there in a few hours, and then you know, you got resupply missions. You can just call mission control if something happens. You know, what do I do now? You know, but when you go to another, like back to the moon or to an asteroid or another planet, it takes a long time. You know, I mean, going to Mars, just to give you a perspective, going to Mars takes about 9 months, 8.5 months. And then you got to wait for all the planets to line up again for the return journey. You just can't just come right back. So it takes another 17 months, and then there's another 8.5 months. 3 years round trip. 3 years, right? So think about all the stuff you got to bring with you, or figure out how to, mine Mars or something, you know, to get the food and the water and the air, and then you got radiation impacting. You got all these problems, and I'm telling you, they're showstoppers. We don't know how to figure that out right now. I mean, they're showstoppers. So, I mean, I'm just encouraging. That's my question to you, to think about those problems, because right now we can't figure it out, and we're going to need help. We're going to need some fresh ideas to figure that out. So, please help us out.
That's right. In fact, just a coda. If anybody, how many in here have a prescription? You've taken a prescription, right? Yeah. But the fact is, you get the prescription and you look at it, and it says it's good for 1 year. So what are you going to do for medicine if you're gone for 3 years before this is over? See what I mean? A lot of people at NASA are working on that problem, but the fact it is a major problem because things go bad. You know, they just lose potency.
Was there a question here? Yes, go
I
ahead.
was just curious, with the school systems changing their math, what is y'all's take on that with STEM? You know, they change up things.
School systems are
The school
changing
systems,
the way they
change
teach math.
The way they teach it, how does that, you know, affect y'all with STEM, when new people come in and they're using these new ways?
I would ask them to show me how they do it. I mean, I'm always an advocate of change. I mean, change is not always good, but generally it's a good thing. If people are trying to make change happen, it's because they're trying to change it for the better. I mean, I don't know really very many people at all who try to change things for the worse on purpose. So I would assume that it's generally for the good, and so I would like to learn. Yeah.
And I think new math, which was the thing that was in the 70s, I guess it was. I lose it. I don't know where it went, but you know, we all survived. Okay. So this one, it's just, I think it's like waves washing in and out of the ocean. The ocean's the same level when you got done. I know you have to live through it, but we'll love you either way. You get through it, we'll come and hire you still.
Okay, I think we probably have time for just maybe one or two more questions. Yes, and go ahead.
So since the exploration of Mars, they discovered life via not intelligent, biological or single cell organisms. Couldn't that be used as a basis to create medicines or food or algae to create oxygen on Mars if we were to travel?
All right. We are already using science on Earth with Earth species, whether it's flora or fauna, plants or animals, to discover new things to help us. And so we can then, we're actually on the space station doing experiments with a range from just one-celled organisms up to vertebrate animals. So we are doing those things now, and everything we're learning on the space station is preparing us for longer exploration on the moon and eventually on Mars. So yes, we are, to this date, we don't know that there's any life on the moon or Mars, but we would, knowing us humans, probably start researching with it too. So.
Okay, anybody else have a burning question?
Bring this smolder.
If not, okay, I think we will go ahead and end it here. Again, thank you so much for sticking around for our final panel this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for coming.